knows every shadow like a lover's name. Her steps a rhythm, a deadly game. Fingers chase the edge of time. She rewrites the world, one line at a time.
Chapter 9, Node 0. The stairwell door slammed behind Ananya with a hollow metallic boom that vibrated in her ribs. For a moment, the noise drowned out everything. The shouts from Hargrove's office, the high-pitched shriek of alarms, the low thrumming of the building's ventilation system. Then, the sound broke apart, swallowed by concrete and distance, and the other layers returned. Red emergency strobes pulsed down the shaft, strobing the world in disjointed frames. Gray steps, black railings, white-painted walls. The siren's wail bounced between floors, an oscillating note that made it hard to tell direction. Ananya took the stairs 2 at a time, keeping one hand on the rail for balance. Her breath came measured, not panicked, a metronome ticking in sync with her footfalls. Years of training turned fear into calculation. The adrenaline surge sharpened her senses rather than clouding them. Irina's voice cut through the noise in her ear, steady and close. "You have company. 4-person response team just left the first-floor security station. Neural batons, soft armor. They're coming up fast." "How fast?" Ananya asked, not breaking stride. "Too fast to play tourist," Irina said. "You're between floors 2 and 3. On your left at the next landing, there's a maintenance access panel, unmarked. Looks like part of the wall. I can fake an equipment override on the sensor for a few seconds. That shaft connects to the sub-basement utilities." Ananya reached the next landing and scanned the wall. The panel was subtle, a slightly different texture, a faint seam, no handle. She pressed her palm along the edge until her fingers found a recessed lip disguised as a mounting bolt. "Triggering," Irina said. There was a soft mechanical clunk as the maglock released. Ananya pulled. The panel swung inward on silent hinges, revealing a narrow vertical shaft crowded with cables and metal rungs. She didn't hesitate. She ducked inside, swung the panel back until it was almost flush, leaving only the smallest gap for air. The stairwell echoed with booted footsteps seconds later. Voices overlapped, short, professional commands. One of the guards pounded on the closed closet door above, then barked something about a locked closet into his radio. Ananya pressed her back to the shaft wall, controlling her breathing. The air here was cooler, tinged with dust and the metallic tang of ozone. The only light came from a sliver around the panel and a faint glow from indicator LEDs on nearby junction boxes. "Stairwell cam sees empty steps," Irina murmured. "I've looped 10 seconds of footage. They think you kept running. You have 60 seconds before they notice the static in the pattern." "How far down?" Ananya whispered. 5 meters, Irina said. "Then a service junction. Ladder rungs on the wall opposite you." Ananya felt for the rungs with her foot. Metal, cold, and solid. She shifted her weight and began to descend, body close to the wall, to reduce noise. Each downward movement was controlled, deliberate. The sounds of the response team faded, boots retreating up the stairs, one voice shouting, "Third floor, go," as she slipped into the vertical artery of the building's skeleton. Her thoughts flickered back, briefly, to the server closet and the quantum decryptor now sitting inert in her bag. "How bad did we hurt them?" she asked. "Bad," Irina replied. "Leverage's orchestration layer just had a very bad day. The node you hit was coordinating their real-time adjustments. Mirror payloads are feeding it false feedback loops. Their dashboards say Indian ports are in cardiac arrest, when in fact the systems are normalizing. So they'll scramble to fix imaginary fires," Ananya said, dropping to the floor of the shaft. Her boots hit concrete with a soft thud. "Exactly," Irina said. "Leverage's beauty was its ability to make synthetic crises look organic. We just turned that back on them." Ananya found the sub-basement access gate, a square of perforated metal bolted over a hole. She worked the bolts loose with practiced speed, slipped into the corridor beyond, and replaced the grate loosely behind her. The sub-basement smelled like every hidden level in every data-heavy facility she'd ever seen. Stale air, faint mold, hot dust, and the oddly sterile scent of overworked HVAC units. Exposed pipes and conduit ran along the ceiling. Fluorescents buzzed overhead, some flickering under the strain of the alarm load. "Orientation?" she asked. "You're under the central core," Irina said. "Utility corridor running north-south. At the far north end is the generator room. Bad idea. Southwest leads to the underground parking. Best exit vector is northwest. Service tunnel that feeds into the loading dock. From there, fence gap on the tree line. You have, generously, 4 minutes until they lock the campus." Ananya jogged down the corridor, her footsteps muffled on the painted concrete. The air grew warmer as she passed near heat exchangers, then cooled again. A ventilation fan rattled overhead. The alarm was quieter down here, like someone had turned the volume down a few notches, but the red strobes still pulsed at intervals along the walls. "Status on their internal response?" she asked. "Confused," Irina said. "The building's incident management system is trying to correlate multiple anomalies: unauthorized closet access, VLAN segmentation faults, IDS spikes. Half the logs say possible malware event. The other half think it's a fire drill gone wrong." "And Hargrove?" Ananya asked. "Still on 3, Irina said. "She's in a secure call. My guess, she's trying to figure out if this is a Russian op, Chinese, rogue contractor, or, her least favorite option, an internal failure." The corridor bent left. A metal door with a faded, no unauthorized access sign barred the way. A badge reader sat beside it, its LED showing solid red. "Can you talk to this one?" Ananya asked. "In progress," Irina replied. "This door's on a lower privilege loop than the third-floor locks. I can push a maintenance override through the building automation system. 3, 2, 1. The LED flickered green. The mag lock thunked. Ananya shoved the door open and stepped through into a wider space, the loading dock's underbelly. Forklift chargers lined one wall. Stacks of empty pallets occupied the other. The far end sloped upward toward daylight, a ramp leading to the surface-level loading area. "Dock cams are on fixed sweeps," Irina said. "I've frozen them on an empty frame. You're a ghost for 20 seconds. Ananya moved up the ramp, eyes scanning. A clatter above signaled hurried movement. Dock workers responding to the alarm, security repositioning. As she reached the top, she crouched just below the lip of the dock platform and peered over. The bay doors were partially rolled down, leaving gaps of bright light where the parking apron showed. 2 security guards conferred near one bay, radios crackling. A third stood by the personnel door, hand resting on his holster, gaze sweeping. "Not that way," Irina said. "North edge of the dock, past Bay 8. There's a side door normally used by trash haulers. Outside that is the dumpster enclosure and the tree line." Ananya kept low, moving behind stacks of shrink-wrap boxes and bundled plastic. The alarm made people's attention collapse inward. The guards focused more on their immediate zones than the periphery. She slipped through the side door without drawing eyes, letting it close softly behind her. The air outside hit different, cooler, sharper, carrying the smell of damp earth and leaf litter. The dumpster enclosure to her right was a concrete rectangle filled with overflowing bins, the sour reek of old cardboard and food containers hanging heavy. Beyond the enclosure, a stretch of chain-link fence marked the campus boundary. At first glance, it looked intact. On closer inspection, one vertical section had been carefully cut and bent back, the gap disguised behind a leaning pallet. "You see it?" Irina asked. "I see it," Ananya murmured. She squeezed through, feeling metal scrape her jacket. On the other side, the ground dropped slightly, into a narrow wooded buffer, a strip of trees and underbrush between the corporate park and a service road. The canopy filtered the light, modeling the path in shifting shades of green and brown. "Stay along the tree line for 50 meters, Irina said. "Then angle east toward the employee lot. I moved your rental behind a delivery van, away from the main exit cameras. They'll be scanning for your plate and your face at the primary gate. We're giving them other things to look at." Ananya followed the rough trail, leaves crunching softly under her shoes. A squirrel darted up a trunk at her approach, chattering briefly in protest. Behind her, the building's alarm continued its mechanical howl, but distance and foliage dulled it to a background warble. Her mind flicked back to the leverage node, for the first time since she'd slammed the closet door. What exactly did we inject? She asked. In terms a non-Russian engineer can live with. Irina's chuckle was a short exhale. Think of leverage as a conductor standing in front of an orchestra, she said. Our mirror payloads are rewiring his sheet music in real time. The violins still play, the cellos still play, but now they're following different rhythms. The conductor thinks he's hearing sabotage from outside. In reality, the noise is coming from his own players. So from their perspective, Ananya said, India's systems are still failing. Just in ways that don't match what's actually happening on the ground. Exactly, Irina said. They will waste precious time chasing phantoms. More importantly, their trust in their own telemetry will erode. You can't weaponize data if you don't believe it. The trees thinned. Through the branches, Ananya saw the expanse of the employee parking lot. Neat rows of sedans and crossovers, glinting under the cloudy sky. A few people stood near the entrance, staring back at the building, phones in hand, pointing at the alarm lights. She emerged from the tree line between two parked SUVs, blending into the geometry. Her Camry sat 3 rows away, half hidden behind a refrigerated delivery van, whose side bore the logo of a catering company. Lot cams show you as generic female figure number 23, Irina said. No distinct facial capture. I've frozen your entry frame on a neutral posture. You're clean. Ananya walked with the slightly hurried but controlled pace of an employee, told to evacuate but not panic. No one looked twice. At her car, she unlocked, slid in, and took a breath as she shut the door. The interior smelled faintly of rental fleet plastic and previous driver's cologne. She started the engine, checked mirrors, and pulled into the flow of vehicles trickling toward the exit. Security had closed the main gate. A guard was waving cars through a side lane, checking badges against a handheld scanner, but not lingering. Stay in line, Irina advised. No sudden moves. They're moving fast because the alarm says internal tech anomaly, not active shooter. The scanner beeped once as the guard waved Ananya's badge past it. He barely glanced at the name. She offered a sympathetic half smile, the expression of a consultant whose billable hours had just been interrupted, and drove on. On the perimeter road, she merged with local traffic, the building receding in the rear view. The sirens faded, replaced by the steady whoosh of tires on pavement and the occasional honk from impatient drivers. The dashboard clock read 3:12 p.m. 8 minutes since she'd plugged the quantum key into the leverage node. It felt both too fast and too long. Status? She asked. Leverage coordination channel is in cardiac arrest, Irina said. I'm watching their telemetry like a soap opera. Chennai. Customs feeds show delays that aren't real. Mumbai. BSE pre-open test harnesses report catastrophic order mismatches, but the live engine is fine because they never switch to attack mode. Their Brazilian credit gateways are spitting nonsense interest rates at their own dashboards, while real-world transactions clear normally. So to everyone outside their little war room, Ananya said, the day looks bumpy but survivable. For now, Irina said, if we sustain this, their ability to create a coherent narrative of India crumbles under Russian dependency collapses. The data will not support the story. And Hargrove? Ananya asked. There was a pause before Irina answered. Focused, she said. She's in a secure internal channel with Reston's higher-level oversight. I can't hear content, but I see the metadata. Multiple high-priority calls to Langley, one to ODNI, one to Treasury. She is not telling them everything is fine. Ananya exited onto the Dulles toll road, heading east toward the Beltway. The gray of the sky pressed low over the highway, punctuated only by the green of road signs and the red of brake lights. Don't relax, Irina said. You kicked the queen. The board will react. What about Leverage's other actors? Ananya asked. Contractors, analysts, planted assets in other countries. Can they improvise around this damage? They can try, Irina said, but the elegance is gone. To re-establish what they had, they'll need months, maybe longer. They might still pull off localized mischief. The Grand Cascade? No. So we bought time, Ananya said. Yes, Irina said. And time in our world is usually the rarest commodity. They fell silent for a few miles. The steady drone of the car and the subtle vibration of tires on seams became white noise under which Ananya's mind sifted the situation. She thought of Delhi, of Malhotra in a secure SVR room, recounting months of quiet collaboration under duress. She thought of Saran at Lodi Road, holding his position as if nothing had changed. She thought of Hargrove, eyes cold, watching her orchestrated symphony fall out of tune. "What's her move now?" Ananya asked. Hargrove's. "If you were her." "If I were her," Irina said, "I would cut my losses here and jump to a backup coordination node outside US soil. Probably in a jurisdiction that lets me operate with more deniability. Some friendly European data haven, maybe. Then I'd double down on narrative warfare. Blame Russia for the anomalies, frame India as a victim of great power games, and present America as the reluctant savior." "Do we know where the backups are?" Ananya asked. "We know where one is," Irina said. "Northern Virginia, which you just visited. The others are whispers, fragmentary references in misrouted tasking orders. Enough to know they exist, not enough to nail them." As if to confirm that, a new tension entered Irina's voice. "Speaking of movement, we just got fresh data from an asset on the ground. Black SUV convoy just left Next Wave's back gate. No sirens. No obvious escort. Headed toward the Dulles corridor." Ananya's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Hargrove?" she asked. "Highly likely," Irina said. "Lead vehicle, armored Escalade, windows blacked, 2 trailing SUVs with contractors we tagged months ago as her preferred cleanup crew. They're not staying to ride out the audit. She's exfiltrating with something important." "The orchestrator backup key," Ananya said. "The one Malhotra's chip mentioned. If she takes it off-site, she can rebuild elsewhere," Irina said. "Slower, cruder, but still dangerous." Ananya signaled right, cutting across a lane to catch the Dulles access again. "Where are we meeting?" she asked. "Sake House in Arlington," Irina said. "Rosslyn, 15 minutes if you push it. Wear your seatbelt." The Arlington Safe House was 3 floors up in an unremarkable brick building that smelled faintly of takeout and old carpet. Ananya climbed the stairs instead of using the elevator, instinct rejecting any box she couldn't control. Inside, the apartment was stripped-down functional, neutral walls, generic furniture, no personal touches. A folding table in the dining area held a small arsenal of tools, not weapons in the traditional sense, but devices whose impact could be just as decisive here. Encrypted tablets, RFID cloners, pocket-sized RF jammers, a couple of unregistered key fobs that could hijack certain vehicle models' door locks. Irina stood by the table, jacket off, sleeves rolled. A map of the Dulles corridor glowed on the tablet screen. "Convoy took the toll road," she said, not bothering with preamble. "Traffic cams confirm. Lead Escalade, 2 trail SUVs. They passed mile marker 12 3 minutes ago." "Destination?" Ananya asked. "Signature flight support," Irina said. "Private hangars. There's a G650 prepped on Ramp 7 under a shell company tied to Next Wave's legal network. Crew filed a flight plan to a nameless European stopover. You don't move that fast unless you're running." Ananya scanned the tools on the table. "Security at Signature? Light on uniforms, heavy on cameras," Irina said. "Federal presence is mostly on the main TSA side. Ramp access controlled by badges and vehicle tags. Once you're past the gate, it's about who looks like they belong." "Gear?" Ananya asked. Irina slid a small jammer across the table. "Short-range pulse. Fry's neural weapons and certain comms for a 5-meter radius. You'll get maybe 20 seconds of confused cursing before they recover with sidearms, if they have them." She held up a slim aerosol canister. "Civilian irritant spray. Legal. Annoying. Close quarters insurance." "And this," she added, passing over one of the blank key fobs, "is for improvising vehicle access. It won't handle full ignition on these models. They're shielded too well. But doors and trunks, yes." "No guns," Ananya observed. "No guns," Irina said. "You get caught on US soil with a firearm near a CIA proprietary. We have a full-blown diplomatic incident before we even argue about who you are. We want deniability. You're just a very unlucky contractor in the wrong rental car at the wrong time." Ananya slipped the devices into her pockets, feeling their weight anchor her. "Convoy ETA?" she asked. 17 minutes to the FBO gate if traffic stays normal," Irina said. "We'll shave a little off by taking the express lanes. You'll need to hit them between the toll plaza and the hangar access. Too early and they'll reroute. Too late and Hargrove's wheels leave the ground. You're not coming? Ananya asked, though she knew the answer. Irina shook her head. Two foreign nationals converging on the same hot zone doubles risk, not capacity. I'll be in your ear, on the feeds, ghosting cameras where I can. That's my battlefield. The asphalt is yours. Ananya nodded once. Then let's go. Route 66 out of Arlington poured them west, lanes thick with the afternoon's ebbing traffic. Ananya drove a different car now. A gray Honda Accord whose plates matched a rental logged to a completely unrelated business traveler. The swap had taken place in a Rosslyn garage, under the watchful eye of an SVR quartermaster who'd spent a decade studying American DMV databases. She kept her speed just a few miles per hour above the limit, enough to move, but not enough to invite a trooper's attention. The radio stayed off, her window was cracked an inch, letting in the low hiss of wind and the faint scent of exhaust. On the windshield-mounted phone cradle, Irina's anonymized feed showed a split-screen view of traffic cams. Stretches of toll road, toll plaza lanes, the access ramp to Signature's gate. In one pane, the black Escalade rolled forward in the center lane, glossy and anonymous. Convoy at mile 16, Irina said. Trail SUVs spaced one car length back each. They know their drills. Ananya's Accord slid into the general flow behind them, separated by a couple of civilian vehicles. From here, the Escalade was just another dark shape in the river of metal. What's airport security chatter? Ananya asked. Normal, Irina said. Signature ramp control flagged their arrival, but no federal tags yet. This extraction is being run on a narrow channel. Hargrove's people don't want outside eyes if they can help it. That's good for us. Until it isn't, Ananya said. The airport loomed ahead. Tall control tower, low terminals, planes parked like quiet giants along the concourses. They veered onto the Dulles access road, then onto the spur leading to the toll road and the private aviation turnoff. Checkpoint in 2 minutes. Irina said, Signature Gate has a badge reader, a board guard, and enough cameras to watch 3 angles of your nose. I can scramble one feed. Not all. Don't bother, Ananya said. We'll have bigger problems than my nose. The highway straightened, the lanes opening into the more sparsely populated stretch near the airport. Ananya rolled her shoulders once, loosening muscles that had tightened during the careful drive. Talk me through it, she said. Irina's tone turned clinical. At the toll road bypass, there's a short stretch where the convex mirror coverage is bad. No direct line of sight from tower cams, just Signature's own gate lens. If you hit the Escalade there, you can spin it into the perimeter fence without flipping it. The trail SUVs will have to brake hard. Use the jammer as you approach to knock out their neural gear and radios. Aim low and broad. And law enforcement? Ananya asked. Airport police will hear the crash, Irina said. Response time 3 to 4 minutes if they think it's an accident, 2 if someone escalates. You need to be in and out in less than 90 seconds. You are not resting Hargrove. You're stopping her from leaving with the key. And if she's not in the SUV? Ananya asked. Then we adjust, Irina said. But all signs point to her being there. Satellite ping on her phone put her at the back exit 3 minutes before the convoy rolled. It's now silent. Likely inside a signal damp vehicle. That Escalade. The toll plaza rose ahead. The convoy signaled right, sliding toward the bypass lane that skipped the regular booths and led toward the FBO access road. Ananya held a lane behind a white delivery van, letting it mask her until the last possible second. Window opening, Irina said. Jammer hot in 3, 2, 1. Ananya thumbed the jammer switch in her pocket. A faint vibration ran up her arm as the device emitted a burst of low-frequency interference, inaudible, invisible, but lethal to unshielded circuits within a narrow radius. Up ahead, the brake lights of the trailing SUV flickered erratically as its onboard systems hiccuped. The driver swore into a dead radio, tapping the console. The Escalade slowed as the gate barrier arm lifted. Now, Irina said. Ananya yanked the Accord out from behind the van, stomped the accelerator, and aimed for the Escalade's rear quarter panel. The world narrowed. The glossy black curve of the SUV, the silver flash of the toll booth hardware, the gray blur of concrete barrier. Impact. The collision felt like a violent shove, metal screaming against metal. The Accord's airbags stayed mercifully dormant, angled just shallow enough, while the Escalade's chassis fishtailed, its rear swinging sideways. Tires squealed. The SUV slammed into the chain-link fence that separated the lane from the airfield perimeter, its frame absorbing the worst of the momentum. The trail SUVs braked hard. One clipped the concrete, spinning its rear out. For a second, the lane was chaos. Horns blaring, rubber burning, vehicles at awkward angles. Ananya's seatbelt dug into her shoulder. Her teeth rattled. Her hands stayed locked on the wheel, as training overrode the panic impulse to freeze. She killed the engine, shoved the door open, and moved. The air outside was a mix of exhaust, hot rubber, and the acrid scent of burning electrical components. Shouts erupted. Angry, confused. The driver from another car yelled something about idiots and insurance. The Escalade's front airbags had deployed, white fabric bulging behind the cracked windshield. The driver, dazed, fought with his seatbelt. The passenger door on the far side burst open. Hargrove stumbled out, clutching a brushed metal case handcuffed to her left wrist. Ananya closed the distance in a sprint. A contractor from the nearest trail SUV was already out, neural baton in hand, eyes scanning. He swung toward her, thumb hitting the activator. The weapon whined, then died with a sad electronic death rattle. "Jammer still active," Irina said. 10 seconds. The man's eyes widened. He dropped the useless baton and reached for his waistband. Ananya didn't give him the chance. She ducked inside his reach and drove the heel of her palm into his solar plexus, feeling the breath leave him in a whoosh. A quick twist and a sweep, and he hit the asphalt, rolling. Hargrove saw her coming. For a moment, their eyes locked. Recognition flashed there, not just of the woman from the fake demo, but of the archetype, an operative, not a consultant. Hargrove's gaze went cold. "You," she spat. "Of course you're not just some vendor." She turned and bolted toward the gate control box, dragging the handcuffed case awkwardly. If she got the barrier raised and the service road cleared, she could still reach the hangar. The G650's tail was just visible beyond the fence line. "Ananya," Irina said, urgency sharpening her tone. "Airport PD units are moving. 1 minute, maybe less." Ananya cut across the lane, slipping between two stopped cars. A horn blared as a driver opened a door into her path. She pivoted, used the edge for leverage, and kept going. The asphalt felt slightly tacky under her shoes, heated by the day and the friction of tires. She hit Hargrove low, shoulder driving into her hip. The impact knocked them both to the ground. The case skidded free. Clattering across the pavement, the metal cuff tugged at Hargrove's wrist. Pain flared along Ananya's cheek as Hargrove's elbow connected. A wild, desperate strike. Stars danced at the edge of her vision. She forced her focus back, grabbed Hargrove's forearm, and twisted just enough to break her leverage without snapping bone. "Let go," Hargrove hissed, struggling. "You have no idea what you're interfering with." "Oh, I have a very good idea," Ananya said through her teeth. "I've been living in its shadow for months." She drove a knee into Hargrove's ribs, not hard enough to break, just enough to steal strength. The other woman sagged. In that second, Ananya slipped a flexicuff from her pocket and looped it around both wrists, cinching tight over the metal bracelet. The contractors were regrouping, neural weapons rebooting as the jammer's pulse faded. One snapped a baton to full charge, blue arcs dancing at its tip. "Irina, time's up. You need the case and you need to move." Ananya rolled off Hargrove and lunged for the metal case. It was solid, heavy, its locking mechanism recessed and key-coded. No time for delicacy. She gripped it with both hands and slammed it down onto the concrete edge of the toll lane divider. Once, twice. On the third impact, the casing deformed, screws shearing, the internal latch giving way with a sickening crunch. The lid popped a centimeter. Circuit boards and a dense cluster of chips glinted within. "Do it," Irina said. Ananya brought the case down again, this time on its edge. The boards cracked, components snapping off. A small puff of burnt insulation drifted up. Somewhere inside, a capacitor sparked and died. "That's the orchestrator hardware," Irina said. "Leverage's lifeboat. Now it's scrap." One of the contractors advanced, baton raised. His eyes were cold, assessing, the look of someone who had fought in places where rules bent easily. "On your knees," he shouted. "Hands where I can see them." Beyond him, Further up the access road, the first airport police cruiser appeared, lights flashing. Its siren added to the cacophony. Ananya raised her hands slowly, case still dangling from one wrist. Her stance looked compliant. Her weight sat on the balls of her feet. "Hands higher," the contractor barked, stepping closer. 3 steps. 2. She let the case drop, its weight pulling her arm down for a moment. As his gaze flicked reflexively to the motion, she shifted sideways, grabbed the open Escalade's passenger door, and yanked it into his path. His baton struck the door's edge with a crack of electricity, discharging into steel instead of flesh. The shock traveled back along his arm. He yelped, muscles spasming, and dropped to one knee. "Airport units 30 seconds out," Irina warned. "You get arrested here, they own you. You need to be in your car, driving, now." Hargrove lay on the asphalt, hands bound, chest heaving. She turned her head, eyes locking onto Ananya again. There was fury there. Yes, but also a glint of something like grim admiration. "You think this ends it?" she rasped. "You broke one tool, that's all. The doctrine lives." "Maybe," Ananya said, "but not today, not on my watch." She backed away, then turned and ran for the Accord. Doors around her were opening. Confused civilians were stepping out, phones raised. Someone shouted about terrorists. Another yelled for help. She dove into the driver's seat, engine still idling, and threw the car into reverse. Tires squealed as she backed into a shallow arc, then shifted to drive and shot into an open lane. As she merged away from the chaos, she caught one last glimpse in the rear view. Hargrove, still on the ground, surrounded by her own men and incoming airport police, the smashed case lying open like a gutted animal. "Dulles Tower is confused," Irina said. "They see a traffic accident, possible security incident. No one has yet shouted foreign operative. Your plates still read as a board consultant's rental. Get off this road, now." Ananya took the next exit without signaling, following a sign for a business park. Her heart pounded against her ribs, but her hands stayed steady. The taste of copper at the back of her throat told her she'd bitten the inside of her cheek in the scuffle. "You just killed their clean exit," Irina said, a trace of satisfaction in her tone. "Without that hardware, Hargrove can't migrate Leverage's full orchestration intact. She can rebuild pieces, but the original architecture is gone. All that optimization, all that calibration, wasted." "And Hargrove herself?" Ananya asked, turning into a side street lined with generic office blocks. "Temporarily grounded," Irina said. "She can't be arrested without exposing too much of what she was doing for her own side. My bet is they classify this as operational incident, slap a dozen layers of secrecy on it, and quietly reassign her. Off the board," Ananya said. "For now," Irina said. "But people like her have a way of resurfacing. Ideas don't die easily." Ananya pulled into an underground parking garage, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the sudden stillness. The faint echo of sirens was still audible in the distance, dulled by concrete and distance. In her pocket, the quantum decryptor felt heavier than before, no longer just a tool, but a piece of history. On its drives were the traces of an operation that had nearly succeeded in rewriting the rules of economic warfare. "We did what we came to do," Irina said softly. "Leverage is broken. Its architect is wounded. Its future deployments will be clumsy, if they happen at all." "And Delhi?" Ananya asked. "Waking up," Irina said. "Your old colleagues just received a very interesting encrypted package. Frankfurt manifests, Meridian client maps, Malhotra's confession logs. Saran will find his nice quiet office a lot less quiet in the next 48 hours. Ananya let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Reston was behind her. Virginia's gray sky hid the facility from sight, but not from memory. The war wasn't over. It had just shifted fronts, back to Delhi's corridors, to Moscow's briefing rooms, to boardrooms in Washington, where people like Hargrove argued for new tools to replace the one they'd just lost. But for the first time since she'd seen that anomaly in Ananta Export's subnet, Ananya felt the axis of the fight tilt, however slightly, away from inevitability. "Get some rest," Irina said. "You'll need it. Delhi is going to demand a reckoning, and you'll have to decide which part of that story you want to own." Ananya closed her eyes briefly, letting the cool air of the garage press against her skin. The path ahead was no less dangerous than the one behind. But she had something now she hadn't possessed when this started in the glass towers of Mumbai. Leverage of her own.
Her eyes burn cold, her touch ignites. She's the heartbeat in the dead of night.